The gala was the epitome of elegance, set in a ballroom adorned with gleaming chandeliers that bathed the room in a soft, golden glow. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and the faint sound of clinking glasses. High society chatter buzzed around the room, each conversation filled with polished words, murmurs of success, and veiled judgments. Everyone here was someone, a CEO, a movie star, a socialite, each one more powerful and wealthy than the next. The polished floors reflected the glint of diamonds, and the long rows of tables were draped in velvet, each setting more lavish than the last. The evening had started like any other gala, with guests arriving in their finest couture, ready to bask in the glow of their own success. Waiters circulated with trays of champagne, their movements graceful, almost choreographed. On the surface, everything was perfect. But behind the smiles and superficial pleasantries, something was about to unfold that would shatter the night's illusion of peace. What began as a typical high society event would soon take an unexpected turn, one that would leave its mark on everyone involved. This wasn't going to be just another night of empty conversation and hollow laughter. The ballroom was filled with the kind of people whose names regularly graced the pages of glossy magazines and headline news. Billionaires, power brokers, and top-tier celebrities, each one a carefully crafted image of success. The women wore gowns worth more than most people's entire yearly salary, their faces perfectly made up, their smiles as carefully curated as the designer jewels draped around their necks. The men, no less impressive in their tailored tuxedos, chatted with a mixture of authority and casual ease, their voices laced with a quiet confidence that only comes with years of control over the industries they dominated. Champagne flowed freely, its golden bubbles catching the light as the guests sipped in unison. Conversations were sharp, polished, and full of veiled compliments and pointed observations. The laughter rang out, but it was never too loud, always just enough to convey a sense of importance. Behind every exchange, there was an unspoken competition for dominance in this world of wealth and influence. No one here was just a guest. They were all players in an intricate game, each vying for attention, validation, and a spot in the upper echelons of society. At one end of the room sat the women who ruled this social circle. They were the movers and shakers, the ones who controlled the narrative and shaped the opinions of the public. Their beauty was undeniable, but it was their influence that gave them power. The quiet hum of their conversation seemed to reverberate through the air, an undercurrent of judgment and whispered gossip. Their eyes scanned the room with sharp precision, observing every detail, every newcomer ready to offer an opinion, whether welcome or not, and there, standing awkwardly near the entrance, was Emma. The young actress, barely a name on the tip of Hollywood's tongue, had been invited to this exclusive event thanks to her recent rise in a critically acclaimed film. She was hopeful, excited, yet entirely aware of how out of place she felt. She was surrounded by the kind of wealth and fame that she had always dreamed of, but the reality was far from the glossy images in magazines. Emma kept her smile fixed, but her heart raced with nervousness. She wasn't sure how to navigate this world where the air was thick with power, but she was determined to make her mark. She stood taller than she felt, keeping her nerves hidden, her eyes darting from one conversation to another, trying to find a way in. Emma had always dreamed of nights like this, though she never imagined them to be quite so intimidating. At 27, she was a rising star in Hollywood, her recent performance in a critically acclaimed film earning her praise. But fame, she quickly realized, wasn't as glamorous as it appeared. Emma's ambition burned bright, but there was a quiet insecurity that gnawed at her whenever she stepped into rooms like this one. The invitation to the gala was a symbol of her success, but it also felt like a reminder of how much further she had to climb. She wasn't yet a household name, but she was hungry for recognition, for that elusive validation that came with being truly seen in this world. Emma's eyes were wide with wonder as she glanced around, her smile slightly too tight as she tried to fit in with the polished crowd. She had the beauty, the ambition, and the talent, but in a room like this, it didn't always feel like enough. The women seated at the center of the gala, however, were a different breed altogether. They were the ones who controlled the flow of influence, who walked into any room with an air of superiority. These women, Margaret, Claire, and the others, were seasoned socialites, hardened by years of playing the game. They weren't just wealthy, they were woven into the fabric of the industry with connections that could make or break careers. They had seen it all and done it all, and now they ruled this world. To them, Emma was just another young actress, a fleeting trend they could easily dismiss. They had the power and they resented anyone who dared to challenge it, especially someone like Emma, whose rising star threatened their dominance. She was an outsider in their world, and they made sure she knew it. As Emma made her way through the opulent ballroom, she could feel the sharp, calculating gazes of the women at the center of the room. They were seated at a long table, their laughter and conversation rising above the noise of the crowd, but there was something about their attention that made her skin crawl. She could feel their eyes on her as she walked past, their judgment already cutting through her like a blade. She wasn't part of their world, not yet. She knew it, and they knew it too. It was Margaret, with her cold, commanding presence, who spoke first. She was the oldest and most influential of the group, a woman whose sharp tongue had earned her both admiration and fear. With a smile that didn't reach her eyes, she spoke loud enough for the entire table to hear. "Well, isn't that just adorable?" Margaret said, her gaze taking in Emma's outfit, a sleek black dress that had seemed elegant when Emma chose it but now felt too plain in comparison to the extravagant gowns surrounding her. "I suppose it's nice that you're here, dear. Although I do wonder if this event is a little above your pay grade." Emma's stomach tightened, but she forced a smile, a nervous chuckle escaping her lips. "I thought the dress was nice," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But Margaret wasn't done. She leaned back in her chair, eyes twinkling with mischief. "Well, maybe if you had more experience you'd know the difference between an elegant gala dress and something you'd wear to an audition." The table chuckled, and Emma felt her cheeks burn with the sting of their words. At first she tried to laugh it off, to brush off the comments like they were nothing, but the women continued, each remark more cutting than the last. "Oh, she's the up-and-coming actress, right?" Claire chimed in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "It must be such a thrill for her, being the new face they're all talking about." She glanced at the others, all of them nodding knowingly. "Such a shame she's only here because of her looks." Emma's chest tightened, the weight of their criticism settling heavily on her. The air around her felt suffocating, and her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the glass of champagne in her hand. She had worked so hard to get here, to prove she wasn't just a pretty face, but now it all felt meaningless. Then Claire stood up. She sauntered to the center of the table, her eyes glinting with mischief, and with exaggerated movements she began to mimic Emma's recent film scene, a dramatic monologue that had earned Emma rave reviews. Claire exaggerated every gesture, twisting Emma's serious expression into something absurd. She dropped her voice into a mockingly high pitch, imitating Emma's lines with a broad, fake smile. The table erupted in laughter. Emma stood frozen, her stomach sinking. The mockery was cruel, unrelenting. The laughter of the others stung in her ears, each chuckle making her feel smaller, more insignificant. She had never been this humiliated before. The coldness in their eyes, the way they looked at her as if she were nothing more than a joke, it was too much. Her smile faltered as she tried to hold it together, but inside she felt her confidence shatter. The weight of their judgment was overwhelming, and for the first time that evening she felt utterly, painfully out of place. As the evening progressed, the gala reached its peak. The chatter quieted as a live auction began, and all eyes turned toward the auctioneer at the front of the room. The mood shifted, and the guests gathered around in anticipation. The rich, eager faces took on an air of competitiveness as they raised their paddles, vying for the exclusive items on offer. The atmosphere crackled with tension. This was the part of the evening that truly mattered, the moment where money, power, and influence collided. And then, just as the auctioneer was about to announce the next lot, something unexpected happened. A figure stepped onto the stage, drawing everyone's attention. The murmurs of conversation faded as the room fell into a sudden silence. It was Johnny Depp. The crowd shifted, some people straightened in their seats, and others whispered in disbelief. Johnny Depp, the unpredictable, the charming, the ever-enigmatic actor, he was the last person anyone would expect at such a high society, meticulously curated event. But there he was, standing tall and effortlessly cool, his dark eyes scanning the room with that familiar glint of mischief. Without missing a beat, Johnny grabbed the microphone. A wave of surprise rippled through the crowd, but it quickly turned into an attentive silence as everyone waited to hear what he would say. Johnny's voice was calm but laced with humor, his signature charm flowing effortlessly into every word. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his eyes sweeping over the room, his tone light but carrying an undeniable weight. "I've been around this industry long enough to know that it's easy to tear people down. In fact, it's often the easiest thing to do. It's far more difficult to support each other, to lift one another up, especially when we're all fighting for the same piece of the pie. His gaze flicked toward the wealthy women seated at their table, who had been laughing just moments ago at Emma's expense. They stiffened, sensing where this was going. Johnny's words were aimed at them, no one could deny it, and especially Johnny continued, his voice softening but still carrying that piercing edge, especially for women in this business. You see, the world already tries to knock us down, we don't need to do it to each other. So I'm here tonight to remind you all that kindness, support, and solidarity are the things that truly make a difference. Strength isn't about cutting someone down, it's about lifting them up. Emma's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected this, not in a million years. His words felt like a shield wrapping around her, a protective embrace against the hurtful mockery she had just endured. She felt seen for the first time in a way that had nothing to do with her looks or her career status, only with who she was as a person, and what struck her the most was how Johnny's words weren't just a generic statement. It felt personal, almost as if he were speaking directly to her. The wealthy women at the table shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their faces, once filled with smug superiority, were now tinged with unease. The room was silent, the tension palpable. Johnny's words had landed with force, and the women could no longer hide behind their carefully crafted facades. Emma wasn't the only one who felt the sting. It was a turning point. The power dynamics in the room had shifted. Johnny, with his quiet yet commanding presence, had taken the mic not just to entertain but to call out the behavior of those who had mocked Emma. And in doing so, he had given her something invaluable, something she hadn't realized she needed. He had shown her that the powerful could use their voices to protect the silenced. As the last of his words hung in the air, the room remained still, the weight of what had just transpired settling over everyone. As Johnny finished speaking, the room was still for a brief, intense moment. The weight of his words hung in the air, and then, as if a dam had broken, a ripple of applause spread through the crowd. It was hesitant at first, but soon it grew, sweeping through the room like a wave. The wealthy women at the center of the table sat stiffly, their faces flushed with embarrassment. They hadn't expected this. They had underestimated how much Johnny's presence could shift the energy of the evening, and now they were caught off guard, their power shaken. Margaret, the most vocal and proud of the group, stood up, her posture rigid with indignation. She cleared her throat, trying to regain control. "Well, Johnny, that's all very charming," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "But let's not forget who's been in the game a lot longer than you, shall we? Some of us know that success isn't always about speaking in platitudes, it's about surviving the industry. Some of us know how to play the game." Her eyes flickered towards Emma, a pointed jab aimed at undermining Johnny's words, as though to diminish their impact. "And I suppose that's something you might not understand. Maybe your history is a little too colorful to talk about such things." Johnny's gaze never wavered. His demeanor remained calm, almost amused, as if Margaret's attempts to rattle him were nothing more than a weak breeze. He didn't flinch. "I don't think it's about playing games. It's about being decent, Margaret, something I thought we could all agree on," he said softly, his words carrying weight, and then, with a steadying breath, Emma took a step forward. She wasn't going to let this moment slip away. The soft clink of her heels on the polished floor echoed in the silent room as she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm not just here because of my looks," Emma said, her eyes locked on the women. "I'm here because I worked for this. I worked hard for everything I've achieved, and it's disappointing to see that some of you think the only way to survive in this industry is by tearing others down." Her words, though calm, held a strength that surprised even her. She hadn't expected to speak out, but now it felt like the right moment. The tension in the room grew palpable. One side of the room, the side that had witnessed Emma's quiet transformation, applauded her courage, their applause growing louder. On the other side, the wealthy women were seething. Margaret's mask of composure cracked slightly, and the others, once so confident, were now visibly unsettled. Their carefully curated images had been chipped away, and for the first time that night, they were the ones who felt exposed. Just as the argument between Emma and the wealthy women seemed to reach its peak, the tension was suddenly broken by the voice of the auctioneer. He stepped forward with an air of excitement, his voice cutting through the stillness of the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one final very special item for tonight's auction, he announced, holding up a small, elegant card. A private dinner with the rising star of the evening, Miss Emma Monroe. A portion of the proceeds will go to charity, and this exclusive opportunity will allow you to enjoy an intimate evening with one of the brightest talents in Hollywood. The room fell into a stunned silence. Emma blinked, taken aback by the unexpected turn of events. She hadn't known about the dinner, but now it felt like her moment of redemption. The focus had shifted. This wasn't just about the glamour and the money anymore. It was something real. Johnny Depp, ever the showman, immediately jumped into action. Without hesitation, he raised his paddle, bidding an absurdly high amount far beyond what anyone expected. "I'll start at 1 million, he said, his voice filled with playful enthusiasm. The crowd chuckling nervously, he turned to the room with a wink. "Come on, don't leave me hanging. Join me." The crowd, eager to avoid any more uncomfortable silences, followed suit. The bids flew in quickly, each one higher than the last. The wealthy women, realizing the shift in dynamics and feeling the heat of the moment, reluctantly joined in. Margaret's competitive edge kicked in, and she too raised her paddle, bidding a substantial amount. It was almost as though they were desperately trying to save face, to prove they still had control of the evening. The mood in the room transformed. What had started as mockery was now an awkward but determined attempt at reconciliation. Emma, still caught off guard by the turn of events, found herself smiling, genuinely this time. For the first time that night, she felt like she had truly won. In this single unexpected moment, she had gained more respect than she ever could have by playing the game the way the wealthy women had expected. She had earned it by standing up for herself, by showing kindness and strength, and now even the most powerful women in the room were acknowledging her worth. As the bidding continued, Emma realized that sometimes in the face of mockery, the best response wasn't to fight fire with fire, it was to rise above it and let the actions of others reveal their true character, and in that moment, she had found her place. As the night came to a close, Emma couldn't help but smile to herself. The events of the evening had taken a turn she never could have predicted. Johnny Depp's support had given her a strength she hadn't known she had, and standing up for herself had shifted the balance in the room. The wealthy women who once dismissed her now had no choice but to acknowledge her presence. As Emma left the gala, her heart swelled with newfound confidence. She had learned a valuable lesson. Sometimes, one unexpected moment and one unexpected person could change everything. Thank you for watching this powerful story of standing up for yourself and finding strength in unexpected places. Emma's journey shows that with courage, kindness, and support from the right people, you can rise above any challenge. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more amazing content, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Share this story with your friends to inspire others, and let's keep spreading the message of empowerment together. We'll see you in the next one.